Am I on? Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. Welcome to the stream. Sorry for the late start. It's like my computer forgot everything. It forgot everything. Forgot all my settings. Didn't know what I did. It was crazy. Anyway, so I had to quickly sort of recalibrate things. But here I am. I made it. I made it. And I can see I'm actually streaming, so that's good. So welcome to the stream. Thanks for being here. So this stream, I think, is going to be a bit of a treat, seeing as it's Valentine's Day. One of the things, you know, I released a video earlier this week. You may have seen it. About it was about pre-trimming your media before you bring it into iMovie to edit, to save space in your iMovie library, because when your iMovie library gets big, it starts to slow down, things start, clips don't show up, bad things happen. So you want to keep it as streamlined as possible. So I showed you a little tip on how to do that before you bring your media in to edit. So it got me thinking, you know what, that's sort of an important part of the process. So let me expand on the process. And I thought, well, let me lay out what sort of a professional video editing workflow would look like in iMovie. So that's what this stream is about. So before I jump in, let me just say hello to some folks in the chat. I see some regulars here, which is great to see. Quantum Life Upgrade. Good morning, fellow video creators. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you so much for being here. Square and Level. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all having a great day. Square and Level, good to see you. Back again. Brian Weber, all good. Glad I get to make another stream. I'm glad you get to make another stream too, because I think this is going to be kind of fun and informative. Good evening, Mike from Portsmouth, UK. Good evening, Deb. Thanks for being here. Trogart, salutations, all from the UK. Good to see you again. Haven't seen you in a bit. Glad you're back. As Ask Bible Prof is here. Thanks for being here again. I'm glad you're here. Great to be here. Life happens. Oh, yes, it does. It does. And listen, that's all part of the process of being a content creator and working with technical things. Stuff just doesn't work sometimes. But, you got to be able to troubleshoot, know what you have to do. And I was able to quickly do that. I mean, whatever. I was a little late. It's not like you're all dependent on me to be here, right? Oh, good evening from Spain. Ajedre 90. Did I say that right? My Spanish is not very good. Sherilyn Simon. Yo to you. Yo to you. UK London. Hey, excellent. A lot of UK folks here. Across the pond. I'm here in the colonies. Deepak Sharma from India. Hey, Deepak. Good to see you again. And Dr. Durant's Sanctum. Good afternoon from the... Wait, I got to do the voice.
Good afternoon from the Sanctum.
That's a lot of fun, huh? All right, enough of that fun. Okay, let us jump into what's happening. So, if you know me, you know I'm always going on and on about how it's not the tools, it's the technique. Most of the time, it's the technique. Sometimes it's the tools. Now, this goes for, if you're using professional editing software like Final Cut Pro or DaVinci Resolve or Premiere Pro, or even Avid if you're working in broadcast, which I did for years. Or it matters if you're using so-called amateur or beginner-friendly editing software like iMovie. So, technique is important, and workflows are fairly consistent across tools. So in this stream, I'm going to go through and show you how you can follow a professional level editing workflow using so-called amateur or beginner-friendly software. In this case, I'm talking about iMovie because that's what I do on my channel. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to break down one of my videos because I think this is kind of the best way to do it. And this is the trailer video for my channel. And I'm going to take you through step-by-step sort of the process that I've followed to edit it together using this professional sort of workflow. Now, I'm using my trailer as an example because I think it's a good representation of a typical YouTube-style video. I wanted to find something that people would make for YouTube because there's no point in showing you a professional workflow, but it's, for broadcast or Netflix or something, because most of you are making your videos, or all of you probably are making your videos for YouTube or, your classroom, or you're marketing your business or something like that. So I wanted to keep it to a YouTube style video. But all the principles that I'm going to show you can apply to any type of video, really, whatever you're doing. But before we jump in, I just want to say hello to a few more people who've arrived in the chat. Let's see, who do we got? From Spain again. Okay, I'm going to try and pronounce this. Havivela. I gave it a shot. Frosty McFrostface, Canadian minivan life. Oh, yes. I had a McFrost face today and yesterday when I spent an hour shoveling after the snowstorm here in southern Ontario. Hey from Canada. All right. From the Netherlands. Hello, Pim Verboen. Yes, Pim. You're familiar. That name is familiar. It's a very unique name. You've been here before, Pim Verboen from the Netherlands. Glad to see you here. Okay, so, I tried to figure out how would I break this down in a way that's just not, incredibly overwhelming for people because it can be. So I basically broke it down and sort of sat down and said, well, how did I sort of learn this? So here's how I broke it down. Now, before I go into it, though, I just want to say, as a disclaimer, that this is, this professional editing workflow I'm going to show you that I follow is based on my experience, my decades working in television. So it's my experience. And working as a director, as a producer, and an editor, working on all kinds of different shows, so many different productions. Other editors with different experience have a different workflow. So what I'm going to show you is not gospel. And again, I've tried to gear it toward making YouTube videos, not Netflix series. Okay? So just to give you that sort of setup. All right, so the pro editing workflow that I follow and I was taught is actually 6 different, think of it as 6 different workflows or phases, or as I like to think of them, passes that you take on your video. So it's video editing, if you haven't been editing already, it's a very iterative process, right? And in this workflow, you finish one phase or one pass, then you move on to the next. Some people, when they're starting in editing, what they'll do is they'll work on one shot or a sequence of shots, and they'll edit them together, and they'll color correct them, and they'll put transitions, and they'll put the titles, and they'll put the music, and they'll do everything to each shot or section as they go. The problem with that approach is, first of all, you don't really get a sense of accomplishment because you're working on these individual shots, and you'll be working forever until you get to the end. And here's the other part. What's going to happen in most cases, you're going to get to the end of the video if you work that way and realize when you watch back that your video is very disjointed. It's uneven. There's spots missing. It's all over the place. It just seems like a bunch of different videos because that's kind of what you've been doing. And you end up in that case, if you approach your video editing like that, you end up redoing a lot of your work, which is not fun. Editing is repetitive and enough of a slog as it is. Having to go and repeat things is not what you want to be doing. And like I said, you have no feeling of accomplishment. So I don't recommend you edit that way. Instead, do it in passes. So I'm just going to outline, first of all, the 6 phases or the 6 passes or phases of the workflow of the pro editing workflow. And you can recreate this in iMovie, any editor really. So the first one, I'm just going to list the 6 first. And sorry, I don't have any title cards for this. I'm just talking today. So you just have to bear with me. So number 1 part, you all know this, is your project setup, right? It's setting up the project in iMovie, setting up iMovie, setting up your media. That's number 1. The second part, once you've done that, the second part of the workflow, the pro editing workflow, is what we call the radio cut. Now you might be saying, radio cut? I thought this is video, Mike. So the radio cut, as the name implies, is where you're focusing on audio. And that's taking and making a good audio story with your video and doing that first. Why? Why would you do that? Because in many, many cases, that radio cut, the audio, acts as a guide for your editing. There's nothing worse than sitting down to edit and going, well, where do I start? What shot should I put in? What am I saying? What's the story? I don't know you don't want to be doing that. So that's what the radio cut is. It helps you get the story, get the guide, the editing guide first. And you're concentrating on audio only when you're editing the radio cut. After the radio cut, and don't worry, we're going to step through all these in detail in a moment, each one. I just want to give you the high-level overview. After the radio cut, the third pass or phase is what we call the rough cut. Now, the rough cut, even though it says rough, what it is there's a lot of work in the rough cut, because in the rough cut, you're bringing in all the visuals that go with your guide track, your radio cut, because your radio cut helps you figure out, well, what do I need to show here to make my point? So you gather all that stuff, and now you're editing it into and combining it with your radio cut. So you're bringing in all your visuals, as I call them, or B-roll, your graphics, all the stuff. And by the end of the rough cut stage, you basically have a finished video. It's kind of like the first draft. So then after the rough cut, and the great thing about the rough cut is it's where you see, oh, the pacing is terrible, or I need a new shot, or that doesn't make any sense, and you make notes of the things you need to fix. And then in the fourth phase is what we call the fine cut. The fine cut is where you fix the stuff, fix the pacing, find shots that didn't work. It's also where you add what I like to call the eye candy, right? So the transitions and the effects, that kind of stuff. So the fine cut is really, you shouldn't be doing major editing in the fine cut, right? Your rough cut is for that. The fine cut is to just fix things, make it look nice, make it look pretty. And that's also where you add your titles and stuff like that. So by the end of the fine cut, you have what we call in the business, what's called picture lock. So as the name implies, it's locked. Picture's done. We're not editing the video anymore. I mean, I mean, listen, we're we're doing YouTube videos. Sometimes we got to go back and fix stuff, but you don't want to be. You want to be done the visuals, because then we're moving on to audio post. So that's where you're fixing the audio, you're adding things like sound effects, and you're adding music, and you're blending them all together, all those different audio elements together, what we call mixing. And then finally, phase 6, if all is well and done, is export. So exporting your video, having the right settings for the platform you're going to be delivering to, all that kind of stuff. So those are the 6 phases. I could end the stream here. I'm kidding. I'm not going to end the stream here. But what I wanted to say, though, as you think of those phases, overall, what you're trying to do as an editor, at least I do, is the beginning part of the phase of the workflow should be where you're doing most of your thinking and problem solving. And as you move down through the workflow, as you get further down there, it's less thinking and more executing. That's why you have these phases. Because by the time you reach the fine cut, for example, your thinking is done. You're just fixing some things, nip and tuck, adding some stuff, right? Fun, eye candy. You're not thinking, oh, I got to totally re-edit this story. It doesn't make sense. I can move whole sections. No, that's what the rough cut is for, not the fine cut. Anyway, just to think of it that way. All right, so I just laid a whole bunch of stuff on you. And that's just the overview. All right, let's go to the chat and see what's up. Take a little break from all this content, Mike. Some more hellos coming in here. Rob, Owen, greetings from Wales. All right, Wales. Cardiff? Are you near Cardiff? Australia. Craig Hammersley, thanks for being here from down under. Optimist goes Tesla. Hi from Germany. Hey, how are the international folks here? This is awesome. Michigan. Solomon, Essex. Yes. Been to Detroit many, many times. Had friends who lived there, actually. Michigan. Forgive me. I thought you were in L.A. Where the heck did I get that idea? Wow, do I give off L.A. vibes, I guess? It's probably because I don't have a heavy Canadian accent. Well, I do when I'm talking to my friends and family. But I was an actor for 20 years, and so I worked on a lot of American, U.S. productions. So I had to sort of learn how to mask my Canadian accent to be in those productions. And it's sort of like this habit now when I get on camera that I do that. So no, I'm not from LA. I am from the True North, strong and free, Canada. Trogart, or a storyboard first if more visual. Yes. And that's what I want to talk about. I'll talk about, that's an interesting point. Actually, what do I talk about right now? So there's different ways that you can approach this whole thing. And I tried to gear it toward YouTube because the YouTube workflow is slightly different than how you would work in professional video. Because in the professional, you would have a script or an outline or a storyboard already in place before you do anything. Like even before you start pre-production, before you find locations, any of that stuff, you got to have a script because it's sort of the plan. And because in professional video production, it was so expensive in television to book crews and use crews and travel and do all those things cost money, there was really no room for error or doing things. Everything had to be very efficient. So you had to have a script ahead of time. So you knew what visuals you needed. You knew everything that you needed to record it ahead of time. Even what graphics and things like that before you even went out and recorded stuff. So when you got into editing, you had everything there for the most part. But a lot of people who work YouTube don't do it that way, right? I think most YouTube creators start with an idea. Maybe they have an outline, maybe have a storyboard, but they get to recording very quickly, right? Because it's in their head. They've got the enthusiasm. So they start, they go on camera and deliver their long on camera. And then they work from that. And so this is kind of what this workflow is sort of geared around, sort of the more the YouTube type style. But these phases of editing are, you can apply them to any different way you do it. If you're planning ahead and you have all your stuff ahead of time, all your material, and you're bringing it to editing, or if you're kind of doing it in pieces. For me personally, for the most part, I do it in pieces. So I'll do my on camera, and I'll do that. I'll edit that together to find my story or get my story down, my audio. And then I know what visuals I need. And I find for me, it's more efficient that way, because then I don't waste time recording or finding things that I'm not probably going to use in the edit. So my guide track really directs me in what I need. But that's just the way I work. And the beauty of online video now, in this day and age, the digital age, and the cost and the barriers being so low, doing it that way isn't a big deal. It's still fairly efficient. So yes, to that point about storyboarding, different ways you can do it. I've been working with iMovie and GarageBand for 15 years. Woo! And I am a professional musician. I have released several albums recorded with GarageBand. All right. And it's clear that it has certain limitations. Yes, it does. But man, you're releasing professional albums? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And you go on. But a true professional is the one who uses the software, not the software itself. Yes, these are fantastic and well-optimized tools. And if you make the most of them, as you do with iMovie, they are truly professional. Thank you for your channel, because it is gratifying to see that the professional is the one who uses the software, not the software itself. Yes. Listen. Okay, let me give you some perspective. You got to understand, and this is, I get the criticism for this because it's iMovie. What are you talking? It's Final Cut Pros. That's Pro, and DaVinci Resolve and Premiere. Yes, it is. I use them. Yes, they are. But you got to understand where I come from. I started in television in the 80s, okay? When I was in broadcasting school, we were editing tape with razor blades and clear tape, okay? That was editing. When my film class, we're on the light table, we're cutting pieces of film, we're slicing it, we're taping it together, we're counting out 24 frames to make 1 second. So I come from a place that's very rudimentary. And even when I went into broadcasting, we were working with tape, and it was linear editing. So it was basically you're copying one piece of tape and recording it to another piece of tape. And that was editing. $1 million edit suites, and that's all they did. And it was not non-linear. So if you had to change your mind, you had to go back and re-record that section. That's why in those days, you wouldn't walk into an edit suite without editing your video first on paper. Called a paper edit, because it was just so laborious, time consuming. But we made full series and television shows, award winning, using that method, as did many other television productions. And then nonlinear came in the mid-90s, and that changed everything. It was a game changer, right? Now you didn't have, I can change my mind. That was so revolutionary. But even those tools in the professional world at the beginning of nonlinear were not even a match to iMovie today. Even Avid, when it first came out, which is the professional standard of nonlinear editing in television, even when it came out, it couldn't do a fraction what iMovie can do. So you got to understand where I come from. And I was making television series, award-winning, with those basic tools. So now, fast forward, time slipped me forward to the 21st century, and I look at something like iMovie and I go, yeah, I don't know. Can I do, all right, I can do audio. Yeah. I can do cutaways. Yeah. I can trim footage. Yeah. I can do titles. I couldn't do that in one edit suite before. Oh, cool. It was like, oh, this is all I need. So that's where I come from. And that's why I know a lot of people, now listen, doesn't do everything. Yes, but there's workarounds. But this is how I know when people don't have a ton of experience in editing. When they start and the first thing, I have to have the pro stuff, because that's what I need to make a good video. That's how I know you're not that experienced, because you don't need that to make a good video. It helps. It makes things go faster. And there are some things you can do, creative things, but Most people, the videos they make, particularly for YouTube, they're not using any of that stuff. From Los Angeles, Elite Traveler. See? Now, Elite Traveler's from LA. Glad you're here. Glad you are here. Sonoma, Jason Whitlark, thanks for being here. Everyone's jumping in. Learned a lot in just a few of your videos. Awesome. Thank you. You're welcome. Glad you learned. You're going to learn a lot in this one. Hey. Kenneth is here from LA. Good to see you, Kenneth. Thank you. Great subject matter. Thanks. Yeah, I thought it would be useful. It's all on the cutting room floor. That's right, Traugard. Literally, it was on the cutting room floor in film class. And just a little bit of trivia, too. You know, in editing software like Avid and Premiere, and even in DaVinci Resolve, they refer to the folders that you store your media in as bins. And you know where that name came from? From film, because that's where you stored your pieces of film. So you would take your film, develop film, and you would splice it up into all the separate shots that you have, all the different shots, and then you would hang them up in a bin, and they would sit there hanging. And how you would edit, because I remember doing this vividly. I was telling my daughter about this. This was media school now, and I was telling a story about film school. Anyway, and how we had wind-up Bolex cameras on wooden tripods. Anyway, so you would take a piece of film, count out 24 frames for a second, say, okay, I need 3 seconds of shot. You got to do the math. Take it, splice, take another piece, take that shot, count out the number of frames, put them together, tape it. There's an edit. Next. And they would make whole films this way. So yeah, anyway, a little trivia about bins. Oh, I'm getting so excited. Some bloke who travels a lot. Loved your videos. So much help, UK. Excellent. I'm glad it's helpful. All right, let me jump back into the content here. And the first thing we want to talk about in the process, my Canadian is process, American is process. I keep going back. Anyway, the process, very important. And, you know, I have several videos, and a lot of the stuff that I talk about in this stream, check my channel. I have videos on everything in terms of if you want to get deeper into the technique, because I don't want to go too deep in the technique in this stream because I don't want to put you to sleep. I just want to do like a high-level overview kind of thing. But yes, everything is on my channel. So the first important part of this phase, though, before we get into the actual radio cut and rough cut, and this part is very important because it'll mess you up and really slow you down if you don't do this effectively. And that is your project setup, okay? We talk about setup. First thing we're talking about when we talk about setup in iMovie, we're talking about the library, right? We're talking about the iMovie library. Let me just switch over to my screen real quick because I just want to show you a couple things. And let's see if hope this works. And there I am. It works. Okay, so this is my trailer project. I'm going to jump back and forth between my Canadian and American project. And this is my trailer that I did for the channel. And I'm using this because I think, again, it's sort of very similar to what people would do with a YouTube video typically. And it has a variety of the things I'm talking about when we talk about all the different things you can do with iMovie in terms of editing. But before you get any start, like people jump in, yeah, let's go, let's start editing. Let's drag in clips, let's go. Sure, you can do that. But I guarantee you, down the line, you're going to slow right down because you're not organized. And you're going to be trying to find shots and going, where's that shot? Oh, I knew it was somewhere. What's all this stuff? I don't even know what it is. Why is it running so slow? Why is iMovie running so slow? You know, all the things will happen, right? So the first part of your project setup is your library. And this is my piece of advice. If you're starting a new project, meaning I'm doing a video about X or whatever, my advice, create a fresh iMovie library for your project, okay? Don't use the default iMovie library that's in your, I think it's in the movies folder that comes when iMovie is installed. It automatically puts the base library in there, and then everything goes in there unless you change it. And a lot of people don't know it's there, and they keep loading that thing up, and then they go, why is it running so slow? Why is iMovie running so slow? And they look and they see that it's like 500 gigs. What? Okay. I got a whole video about my library management. Watch it, please. Watch it. But that is my piece of advice first. Create a fresh library. Now, there's a couple ways you can do that in iMovie. One way is if you open iMovie and it'll open up to your default library. Let's say you're just opening it fresh. You haven't done anything. It's going to open the library that's in the movies folder. What you should do automatically is go up to File, Open Library. I know it's counterintuitive, but Open Library, New, and create a new library. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it, I'm not going to show you here because iMovie is already open, but if iMovie is not open, hold down the Option key on your keyboard and then launch iMovie while holding down the Option key, and you'll get the library screen that says, hey, you want to open a library, you want to start a new library, create a new library. Please, just for organization's sake. That's my advice. Now, here's the beauty of the library system, and a lot of people are confused about the library system in iMovie and in Final Cut Pro. And understandable, they don't explain it very well. But once you understand it, it's a very powerful system. I'll tell you why. First, for organizing and keeping everything in one place. So your media is not over here and your audio is over here, and you got, broken links and it's all crazy, trying to hunt things down. It keeps everything together. Also very easy to say, hey, I'm editing this part of this video and I'm going to hand it off to my friend who's going to edit, or maybe my friend's going to do the audio in iMovie. I'm not that good, so I'll take my project and give it to so-and-so and they'll do the audio because they can open it up because it's a complete contained package. The other great thing about libraries is that you can open more than one at a time. Okay, you can't really do this in any other editing software. Well, why is that a big deal, Mike? Think about it for a second. You could create, and I know people do this, you create an iMovie library that's just a whole bunch of graphics and branded overhead or anything that you always constantly use in your videos, right? You can have an iMovie library just for that, or maybe just music, or maybe just graphic, whatever. But the thing is you can open that up alongside the library you're working in and just drag and drop what you need from that stock library into the project you're working on. That is brilliant. You can't do that in any other editing application. So it all opens up a whole world of organization for you. Anyway, I'm getting excited. But yes, please, fresh library, okay? Fresh library. It'll just help you. It'll just help you. And for archiving purposes, you can move it to another drive. You can do all kinds of stuff. So big part of the organization. But before you even do any of that, and this is something I know I'm not the best at this, and that is labeling. Label your media, label your shots so you know what they are. You have some idea of what they are in order to identify them. Now, I don't always I'm not so great at this, but go ahead before you bring it in, and do it before you bring it into iMovie, because you can't label your clips inside of iMovie. You can't do it. And you don't want to go find it in the Finder. Some people say, okay, well, I'll go into the Finder and find it and relabel it there. It ain't going to work because it's not going to show up in iMovie, because iMovie is copying the media into the library. It's making its own copy. So it's going to use that copy. So label your shots. And here's a super amazing tip I'm about to show you as the reason why you should label your shots for editing. Okay, let me show you right here. So here I am in my iMovie project here, and I've got some clips up here. So obviously I can see that they're, camera clips. But say I want to know what am I talking about? Say I labeled this something like, talking about iMovie or Final Cut Pro. Well, how do I know? Well, there's a couple ways you can do it. If you select this, your clip, and you go up to the right, and you see this I here, info. That'll show you the name, the date of your clip, and how long it is, and other stuff. So that's how you can identify. But here's the thing, that is kind of a pain. If you had like a bunch of clips here and you needed to know instantly which one is what is it? What I don't want to keep going click, go over the info, click. That's carpal tunnel syndrome stuff, man. So I'm going to show you a super cool trick. It's not even a trick, it's just a feature. Go up to the iMovie library, select View, Skimmer Info. And here's the shortcut. I think it's, Control Y. Watch. I put this on. Look at that. Now I skim over and it tells me the name of the clip. You can see. So super helpful. Super helpful for identifying things. So that's why you want to label your clips, right? Before you start doing anything. So you can find them quickly. I mean, there's only 2 here. Let me go to the stock footage. Let me talk about this too, but I'm just going to go here. Now look at all these clips. What? Huh? I can just skim over. Oh, yeah, okay, that's it. Oh, that's the phase of production thing. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, iMovie jump cut. Oh, okay, cool. Yep. Oh, I'll use that. So you see how fast that is now? So label your stuff and use skimmer info. All right. Okay. Hope that was enlightening for you. Boy, Mike, I'm just kind of going. Oops, I'm just kind of going on here. I'm riffing. I'm going. So if I'm going too fast, let me know. Let me know. But yes, label. That's a big reason to do it, is to label. That's skimmer info. Okay, so we talked about labeling. So I talked about the library. Now let's talk about organizing your footage. And you can see here on my screen, I've got all kinds of stuff going on. So I have several different events here. On the left, you can see in this library. So this is the library, MVM iMovie library. And then all this text, these are events. And you can think of events as folders, honestly, or bins, wherever you're coming from, just ways to collect and organize things. So I suggest organizing, don't just have like the default event and then put everything in there. I mean, you could. I mean, I'm not saying you can't, but it's going to take time for you to sift through things and try to find what you're looking for. Better to organize, make different events folders for your material. And the basic breakdown that I suggest is, I have one here for camera footage. I have one here for stock footage. So this is stuff that I've gathered, like taken from other videos. So I know, okay, that's stock footage. I didn't record this for this video. I just took it from other sources. And this goes for stuff even, you get from stock footage places like this clip here. And then I have one for graphics. And that's where I put all my animations and graphics. So I know they're all there. I know where to look when I need them. They're all there. And then I have one for audio, which is my music. And I don't even know if you can hear anything. I don't have skimmer audio on, I don't think. But anyway, I've got my music and sound effects. Put all my audio in one event. That's sort of a basic breakdown. You could even go even more granular if you want to. Like you could, if you're doing a documentary style video, you could have a event for your interviews, an event for your location, or an event for establishing shots. If you're doing a vlog, you could break it down by locations or days, however you want to do it. But having organization is off the top. It's not sexy. It's not like, oh, let's get into the editing, but I'll tell you, it just saves you a lot of headaches and time down the line. And like I said before, near the top of this, when it comes to the workflow, we want to do the majority of our thinking at the beginning, not the not fun stuff, the drudge work at the beginning. And as we go through the workflow, things get more fun and creative. So if you do that, organize ahead of time, that's what'll happen. So, and then you just bring in your footage into your events and you can drag and drop it in. That's what I do. I just drag and drop it from folders. You can use the import dialog, which is this thing here, right, to import stuff. I just don't, it's good for if you want to preview things because you can select stuff and, you can preview it. Like, it's like, okay, I want to see what this is. Oh, okay. You can play back and you can preview. So it's handy for that. But I find it just quicker to just drag and drop. A couple other things too here. You can see it shows your devices on the left and you can make favorites, which is kind of cool. So if there's a folder that you bring a lot of stuff in, say you have your media folder, you can create a favorite for it here. So, if you keep going back to that a lot, but usually I just drag and drop from the Finder, but that's just me. So that's how you get your stuff in. So you organize, library, events, import footage, skimmer info, and away you go. So that is sort of like the project setup part, which I know is not, it's funny, it's not exciting and sexy, but a lot of people have a lot of questions about it. How does, because they don't understand, how does it work? I don't understand how iMovie and Final Cut Pro, which has a similar thing. What's a library? What's an event? So very important to understand to help you be more efficient down the line. All right. That was a lot of yickety yakking. So I'm going to take a break for the chat now because I want you to absorb all of that information. Because that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning of it. Yes. All right. Trogart. I know. That is why I said it. I'm an old dog as well in my time in collage for design. Yes, photography and film is totally irrelevant today, apart from the experience in the time. It's not irrelevant. It's not irrelevant. Not at all. It's the same principles. It's just different tools. I mean, it's the same, I have a fine art background up through high school. I actually was this close to going to art school, but I decided to go to media school instead. So I studied fine arts. And I remember when digital happened and digital drawing programs came out, and I said, this is not drawing. How can you draw with a mouse? And Adobe Illustrator was like, oh, this is an illustration program. Cool. Hey, wait a second. What's this vector stuff? Why control points? This is not very creative. But once you learn the tool, you applied the same principles you learned, using charcoal and Conte and pencil and clay and oil paints and watercolors and acrylics, all that stuff. And you apply the same principles you learned, but now you're using a different tool. But the same principles still apply. Things like, if you talk about fine art, things like value, color, form, all those things, they still apply. Composition, that's another big one. That's the one that really transferred over to video for me. Composition. Very important. Wow, that is great info. You demand. Got to run. Oh, I know. I go on, ask a Bible prof. Thank you very much. You can catch the replay. Please do, because I think this is very valuable information. Very valuable information. I'm going to take a sip of my tea, and then I'll be proceeding on. I wonder if I should run my Be Right Back screen for when I take a sip of tea. Would you like to see it? Just for kicks? Here, I'm going to run it, and then I'm going to be right back while I take a sip of tea. Ready? Here we go. I'm back. I just need an excuse to use that. I made it, and now I'm going to use it. All right. Okay, so we've organized, we've set it up, we've brought in our footage. The next part of the workflow is the radio cut, as I mentioned. All right, so this is basically where you're concentrating on audio. So typically with a YouTube video, you've got a long on camera, and I'll go back to my screen here. And so I got this on camera right here. Okay, so this is typically what you have, right? It's a big, look, it's 20 minutes long of me yickety yakking as I, say and pontificate and go on and on. So the point of this is to usually this is what you start with, right? And so you can see here on the timeline, there it is. So the first part of the process, the workflow, is to take this, essentially, which is your narration, and edit it into a radio cut. So basically, you're concentrating only on audio and making the audio work, telling your story with the audio of the video. You're not worrying, you're going to be jump cutting all over the place. Don't worry about it. That's not the purpose. You're concentrating on audio. Now, if you're somebody who's doing a faceless video, okay, Mike, I don't show my face. Well, you still use an audio guide track, but in those cases, you'll be using a voiceover. So you could record your voiceover guide track right here in iMovie, going over here to the voiceover tool. So you can see the little microphone there. I just clicked it to activate it. I have a whole video on this. Of course, check the channel. And there you can see it's catching my microphone. And you go into your settings here. Right now it's on system settings, which is hooked to my mixer, and you can adjust the volume, all kinds of stuff. And then when you record, you hit the button and away you go. One little caveat with the voiceover tool, because a lot of people try to record a voiceover and they're like, it doesn't work. The button's not showing. This thing, I can't click it. You need to have a clip on the timeline in order to add the voiceover, because it's going to become a connected clip. So typically what you would do, and again, my video shows this, you would put down the first shot of your video, let's say, what is establishing shot or whatever. And then you put that in for like 3 to 5 seconds, and then you'd record your voiceover, connect it to that clip for the rest of the video. And then you would edit that together. Or you could use the music well down here, which isn't connected. So you can use this as well. This is just hold music. This is independent track from up here. It doesn't need to be connected to anything. You could edit your VO down here if you wanted to. That's if you're doing a faceless. But even if you're doing a faceless video, my suggestion is to even just still record your voiceover on camera. It's just more flexible to have than recording a voiceover in iMovie. I find recording the voiceover in iMovie is really just for like spot, sort of dropping in spots and adding some extra VO or something like that, punching in, as we call it in production. I don't really use it to lay down an entire VO. I just record to camera and just, take the video part out. You can detach, right? You can detach your audio from your video, you just select it and right click and detach audio. So anyway, so that's if you're doing faceless. But anyway, the radio cut, you're taking this, so in this case, in this video is my example, all these, you can see them here. That's what I started with. All this stuff here, ignore this overlay stuff. My video started with just this track of my talking head through the whole thing. I added some stuff here. You can see here. Here's an example where I separated the audio from this video because I wanted to drop in some shots, but I didn't want to use the track, take up the overlay track. So I know I'm not going to be seen here. I'll just take my audio. Now it becomes a voiceover, and I'll drop in. We'll talk more about this whole thing later when we talk about Fine Cut. But anyway, so you have your radio cut. And so at the end of that, you have a guide track. And again, you're editing for the story, just an audio. If you're doing something like a documentary, same kind of thing. In my case, I've done many of them. You would use your interviews as the guide track. So you take out the interviews and edit it together so it tells the story, you want to tell. That is the objective of the radio cut, is editing for the story, but only in audio. So basically, it's kind of like you're making a podcast. But the emphasis is on making a clear, impactful audio production. And like I said, at the end of the phase, you should have you should have a pretty good idea at least. And again, remember I told you the early in the process is the thinking part. So at this point, you're going to go, do I have a story here? Or do I need some more? Right? And that's where you're kind of figuring that out with the radio cut. So that's the importance of a radio cut. It's just such a great guide for editing. So let's talk about some of the tools that you in iMovie here that you would use to make your radio cut, because iMovie has great editing tools. For example, we talked about skimmer info, right, for seeing clips. Another thing you want to do a lot of times if you're editing audio here, primarily in iMovie, and you can see them down here, is you want to see your waveforms. And if you're not seeing waveforms here, and you're like, I can't see any waveforms. Mike has a different version of iMovie. There's no waveforms. Go over here to settings, and down here, show waveforms. Oh, you can't see it. Hold on. Let me move my face. Live. We're live. Over here, settings. Show waveforms. Okay, turn that on. You turn it off, you see no waveforms. You're like, I can't see anything he's talking about. Turn it on. Okay, that's where you do that. You can also turn off waveforms too, which would be helpful in the media browser. You can see I don't have them on here. So you go over here to the little cogwheel, show waveforms. Boop. Now, why would you want to do that? Because a lot of times you can go in here and you will find your clips. Some people, there's a couple ways you can do this. You can take this whole clip and dump it on the timeline and go through and edit that way, trim, take out this, find the mistakes and go through the whole thing like that. Or a more professional workflow is you would do it up here in the browser. So what you would do is turn on your waveforms. Now it's like, well, I can't see much. This clip is really small. Go over again to here, to this cogwheel, and you see this zoom control. Zoom it in. Now you can see, oh, now I can see everything. Oh, look, I can see pauses. I can see pauses in my, oh, okay, so I know I started something here. So now you can go, hit the end point here to make an in, go to the next pause. Oh, there's a out, and you can skim and listen. I don't know why I don't have audio skimming. Turn that on. There. I don't know why I'm not hearing that. I don't know if you're hearing it. No, it's not coming through. That is bizarre. It should be. Anyway, some audio issue here. But anyway, turn, so you can zoom in, turn on waveforms, and you can see the pauses, and which in most cases is going to be, a mistake or something like that. And you can go in there. Also, JKL, again, I have a video on that. Spacebar to play, K to pause, L to go forward faster, hit it again, faster, pause, go back with the J. And that's the way to shuttle through your footage. So there's a couple ways you can do it. And you can do that shuttling too on the timeline. But I find that you can only zoom in so far in the timeline. This zoom can only go so far. I find you can go zoom much farther in using the browser. So those are some tools in iMovie for creating your radio cut. Always there's the trimming tools. We all know how to use the trimming tools. Pretty, you just click and drag on things, and that's trimming. Excuse me, you can nudge edits by selecting them, and then using the comma key, you can nudge edit back one frame, and the period key nudges it forward one frame. I use that a lot to just get precision with the editing, particularly with audio. So that's a tool. Again, there's videos on my channel about all these things. Yeah, so those are the tools you can use to make your radio cut. And it's the typical stuff. You're splitting clips, you're finding the mistakes, and that's pretty much what you're doing. And the hilarious thing is that most YouTube videos are just radio cuts. It's just jump cut on cameras, and that's it, right? So, I guess you could leave it at that, but we're not going to leave it at that. So that is making a radio cut. So I hope that's clear, and that is going to be very important as a guide to take you through the rest of the editing. Again, most thinking up here at the top, and as we come down, it gets a little more fun. A little more fun, hopefully. Until your boss comes back and wants all these changes. All right. Hi from India. Learn a lot from your videos. Would love to have an affordable course from you to learn affordable. Final Cut Pro from you, as I'm planning to move to Final Cut Pro from iMovie to DaVinci to Final Cut Pro for my own vid edits. There's lots of stuff. I mean, yeah, Final Cut Pro is very similar to iMovie. If you saw my video a couple weeks ago, very similar. Well, there's some differences, but it's very similar. The concepts are all the same. Yeah. It's funny you say affordable course. That's actually a great prompt for me to pitch. I started a membership, if you haven't noticed, on the channel. If you've watched my videos, you can see the little join button underneath. I've been humming and hawing about doing this for forever. And I decided, okay, I wanna start a membership for a couple reasons. One is I want to sort of create a place for my, the people who, my big fans, the folks who are always here, who I love, who come. I'm not saying, you have to join. I'm just saying I wanted to create something that was beyond just the channel and the videos, sort of community. And so I wanted to do that. But the other thing too is I got a lot of content and ideas that for me, I don't think fit the general YouTube environment, right? Because a lot of people in YouTube, they're looking for quick answers. They don't want stuff that's too complicated. They're looking at the time. How long is this video? It's very utilitarian, right? But I have stuff that's deeper, that goes into concepts, that takes a little more time to develop, especially if you're talking about project videos, creating things. There's no quick, let's create, there's no quick thing. This is going to take some time. But I have a lot of great ideas and information, and I wanted to put it out there. And so I put it in the membership. So if you join the membership now, there's two levels. There's member level, which is great. You get you get priority comments, some other perks. You can check the perks on the page. But if you go Member Plus, you get access to these videos. And I have a video I launched. Well, I didn't want to launch with nothing, so I created a 30-minute deep dive tutorial on how to create custom video transitions for iMovie using Keynote. And this deep dive. This is like soup to nuts from beginning to the end. So, and it's quite comprehensive. So that is the kind of stuff that's going to be in the membership, along with some other things, not always big stuff like that. Other things like posts and tips and stuff like that. But anyway, I started a membership, so check it out. I think it's going to be fun to build a community over there. And so going to the question of, Final Cut Pro tutorials and stuff like that, that is going to be the place where I'll, doing the deep dive tutorials into things. So yeah, just to let you know. Just to let you know about that. Dr. Duran Sanctum. Most of my videos are faceless, and I alternate between on-camera VO and VO and iMovie. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I just find it's weird because with iMovie, because you have to attach it to a clip, it can get a little wonky in terms of handling the VO. That's why I like just having sort of a separate clip I can put, that I have as a VO. I also, there's some kind of pressure too when you're recording a VO in iMovie, seeing the playhead moving and stuff. You see the red dot. It's like, oh gosh, I'm recording. Where if you're doing a camera or into like even QuickTime Player, it's like you don't even see what's going on. Anyway, that's just my preference. Bob Casey Ariel. Hey, I made it to a live. Yay, Bob. Thanks for being here. Jason Whitlark just became a member. Oh, yes. Jason, thank you for joining up. Thank you for becoming a member. Appreciate it. Awesome. Got to build this community. Very exciting. Very exciting. Thanks for your reply. You are welcome. You're welcome. I'm going to take another sip of tea. Be right back. I know that's probably obnoxious, but anyway, I just want to use it. Oh, by the way, that was my wife you saw on that Be Right Back screen. Here, I can VO over that. You can see it. So, yeah, that's what we were doing in production. She was a children's host for many, many years, and we're doing a little children's thing. And that's us shooting the video in our living room. Crazy. Anyway, moving on. Square and Level just became a member. Oh, Square and Level. Welcome to the membership. Welcome to the membership. Awesome. Oh, this is going to be good. And also, what I plan to do, and just a little difference. Listen, Member Plus is awesome because you get access to all the all the tutorial videos and all the tips. Also, there's going to be members only live chats for more topics and trainings. And what I hope to do in the members live chats is do something that I think a lot of people have been wanting me to do for a while, but it's kind of hard to do at scale. And that is actually review videos. So look at your videos and give you comment on it. So that's sort of the plan for the Member Plus live streams. However, if you just become a member, and that's great, I enjoy any support. I mean, just being here is great support, and I really appreciate it. If you become a member, you'll also get access to monthly member-only live chats. So what does that mean? It means when we do these public live streams like I'm doing right now, once a month, only members will be able to chat in the chat. So there's some perks there too. So whatever you can do, whatever you want to do. Like I said, I'm just happy for the support. But thank you so much for joining up. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Venezuela's in the house. Andy, Cellini, or is it Cellini? Cellini. Thank you for being here. All right. We got more to get to. So in this crazy workflow, I can't wait to have to edit this down to a video. All right. So the next phase of before I jump in, because there's an editor in the house. The Dusty Dutchman is here. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being here. What's up? I know you're Final Cut Pro guy, but you'll appreciate this. This is, like I said, this what I'm going through is kind of is software agnostic. You can use it for any software you're using, any kind of editing. All right, so we've done the radio cut. You have your guide track. You know what you're doing now. It's like, okay, I know what my story is. Now, typically what will happen next is based on your story that you've made in your radio cut, you're going to go, okay, now I need to know what visuals do I need to support what I'm talking about. I refer to them as visuals. A lot of people call them B-roll. It's interchangeable. I just prefer visual or viz. That's what we used to call it in the business. But anyway, it's figuring out what pictures, video stills, graphics, what have you, are going to help make your point. What do you need to show? At what point do you really need to show something? And, this is video. So show and tell is kind of good, as much as possible. So that's what you would do. Now, again, I mentioned in the beginning, there's a couple ways of doing this. If you've done a script or an outline or a shot list, you may have gone out and recorded and gotten your visuals or B-roll ahead of time. And that's cool. You're ahead of the game. But like I said, most people, and because we have the luxury, because of the tools and the flexibility, you can break off at this point and go find your visuals. And I'll tell you, I prefer this method, and I'll tell you why. It's far more efficient because now I know what I'm looking for. If you're doing unless you do like a detailed storyboard, you really kind of have an idea of what you need. Okay, I'm gonna, you're looking at your script and going, okay, I'm talking about this. I should get shots of this or whatever. And you're kind of very general about it, and then you go out and you record stuff, and maybe you don't use all of it, or maybe you don't use any of it. It's like, well, I don't really need it there. When you do it this way, working from your radio cut, you know exactly what you need. And so I know, because that's how I do it. Then I go, okay, and I'll even go through here. Hold on a second. Let me go back to the screen here. And I'll go through my radio cut, and what I'll do is where I know I need a visual, I will put in. I don't have any here because I've taken them out because this is a finished video. But what I'll typically do is if I go through, I will put a background. Let me just show you what's going on here. Okay, let's say for example. Okay, let me just use this because it's a kind of an open spot here. Sorry, don't mean to give you motion sickness scrolling through here. But let's say over here, right? Say I want to, okay, I know I'm going to put a visual there. I don't know yet what it's going to be. So I go through my radio cut. And what I'll do is a couple things. Most times what I'll do is I'll put a little title there. So I'll go, or a couple things you can do. You can be very general about it, and sometimes you just put a background, like a colored background there. Like, you'll take the industrial. Oops. Don't want to mess up my edit here. Anyway, I'll undo that. But I'll put a background there and go, okay, I know I need a visual there. That's this thing is there. But it's kind of general. It's like, well, I don't know what it is. What do I need? That's why I use titles. I'll take a title, any title, doesn't matter. Take this one, I don't care. And put it down over top. This is a great use for titles. Come on, mouse. And put it there. And then I'll write what I need. I don't know. Shot of dog. If I could spell. Shot of dog. Right? So I'll know, and it's a terrible title to use. But anyway, I'll put it over so I know, oh, I need a shot of dog here. Right? That's how you can denote. iMovie has markers you can place, and like I said, you can use backgrounds, but you can't label them, so you don't know what they are. It's like, well, I know I need something, but I don't know exactly. That's why I use titles, so I can say, and use a title with a background if you want to, right? You could do that too. But anyway, it's a way to go through your radio cut and find the spots where you need visuals, and then you make your shot list, what I call my shopping list of shots that I need. Then I know exactly what I need, and I go get them. So that's what you're doing as a first part of your rough cut. And then once you gather all that stuff, you figure out what you need. You're coming in, you're bringing it in, and of course, again, you're staying organized, right? You're still using your bins. Don't just dump the stuff anywhere. Use your bins, organize your visuals, graphics, stock footage, all that stuff. Keep it organized. Trust me. I mean, look at this bin. This is crazy for this event. There's a lot of stuff in here. I could probably break this down a little more. Probably should. But anyway, for the sake of this demo. Anyway, keep organized. Stay organized. So once you've found your visuals, you've gone through Radio Cut, you've made notes of where you need stuff, you've made your shopping list, you go out and you get them. That may be recording stuff. If you're demonstrating something, you got to record something, or maybe you're getting stock footage from wherever, story blocks or Envato elements, or wherever you get your stock footage. Or in my case, I've taken a lot of stuff from my other videos because I demonstrate a lot of things. Anyway, that's all the different ways you're going to be getting it. And you're going to be adding it in. So this is where you now start doing some visuals. This is where we're concentrating on the visuals finally of video. So you're adding in your visuals and B-roll. Okay, so you can see here I'm using the overlay track, which is, and pretty standard. This is all just overlay stuff. Very basic cuts. Just adding stuff where I need it. Trimming for timing. One tool, I'll get to in a moment. I'll talk more about the tools to help you with editing your visuals here in iMovie in a moment. But you're coming in now, you're adding your visuals, and you're now trying to make a complete video, right? Not finished, but you're trying to make it as complete as possible using your radio cut as a guide. And so you have a complete story, right? You could theoretically walk out after the rough cut and post it if you wanted to. I mean, that's kind of the level that you should be getting at with the rough cut. Even though it says rough, I know it's like, well, rough, you just kind of throw in stuff. No, rough cut is very much for the whole story, to see how the whole story is unfolding. Because a lot of times you have ideas, we know this, you have an idea and you start working through it and you start creating, and inevitably, once you stand back and look at it, you go, well, that didn't quite, that's not quite what I was looking for. Or that didn't quite turn out how I thought it was going to be. That's not quite what I was looking at. That's what the rough cut's for, right? To see it all, warts and all. So that's what you want to do. So it's going to be the bulk of your, well, not really, because you have the radio cut. It's just, you're working on visuals now. And so let's talk about the tools that I know I use a lot of when I'm doing rough cuts in iMovie. Obviously, I talked about the overlay track. And the great thing about the overlay track is that you can experiment with the placement of your visuals for timing and stuff like that. When you had one track back in the day, you had to do this. You had to detach, you can see here, this on camera, you have to detach the audio, which is not, it's not terrible, and then you would add in your visuals and use this as a voiceover. And it works, but it's more work and tedious in terms of editing, where when you have an overlay track, you can just really try stuff out really quickly, which is what's great. So overlay track is what you're going to be using for doing the rough cut. You're going to be using all the trimming tools, nudging, you're going to grab things and trim them and stuff like that, as usual. You can see here, I've used some markers. You can see the little purple markers here. And a lot of times I use that for timing, right? To line things up. So if I need to line up my visual with something I say in my voice, in the radio cut, I'll use a marker to line it. I'll put a marker at the spot in the visual and then slide it right over where I say it, and then I'll adjust accordingly. So markers are really handy that way. Another tool I use a ton of when editing visuals, and that's the clip trimmer. You saw my video on that? The clip trimmer. Clip trimmer. Oh, this thing is amazing. It's not showing up right now. There we go. But this is what we do to make what we call slip edits. What does that mean? Where we're going to slip. See these white bars here? That's the in and out point, right? So here's the video that you're seeing. Here's all the rest of the media on this clip. So for timing, I can slip the edit points like this. So to make things line up properly with my voiceover or with my voice. So I can slip. This is so cool. This is like a pro level feature. It's a pro level, the slip edit tool. So this is very cool in order to line things up and get the timing right when you're making your rough cut. Another great tool, you saw this video, it's a favorite. It's a clip trimmer. It's a clip trimmer. I use that a lot. Sometimes, though, if I have visuals on the main track, and this is one of the downfalls of one of those limitations, is the precision editor. So this is another pro level tool. There's one of these in the Final Cut Pro as well, but you don't use it in Final Cut Pro because you can trim with other tools. But this, you can get in here. One of these things, this dot here is an edit point. And so I have a whole video on this. I'm going to go into it. I have a whole video on how it works. The sad part is it only works on the main timeline. It doesn't work on the overlay track. But anyway, these are tools that you're going to use for your rough cut to get your visuals precisely timed, especially if you're doing kind of videos where you're doing what we call continuity editing. What does that mean? So say, for example, you're demonstrating how to a craft, or yeah, let's just use that. And you have your hands doing stuff. You may want to get different angles of it. So you have a wide shot of you doing it, and then you're going to do it again. This time you get close-ups of your hands or certain parts and so forth. So you get 3 different angles. And then you want to edit all that together using continuity editing. That's a whole other subject. Anyway, something like the Precision Editor and the Clip Trimmer are great tools to do precise editing. So those are the sort of the big tools you're going to use for the rough cut. Now, and one other thing too, though, and this might go against, a lot of conventional thinking, but in the rough cut stage, I also like to do color correcting and fixing footage that's like shaky or stuff like that. So, your color correction tools are up here. And here they are, very, very basic. I mean, there's not like a ton you can do. But sometimes you want to use this control way over on the right here to fix like the white balance, like the color. Maybe it's too blue, depending on what happened with your camera. Sometimes the color can be off, the white balance, as they call it. And so you can adjust that here. But the reason I do my color correcting in the rough cut stage and fixing is, Mike, why don't you do that at the end? That's when most people do it. Because I don't want to I want to know immediately if I can fix something. Again, remember what I said? The earlier in the process that you want to be fixing and thinking and problem solving. You don't want to be doing it at the end. You want to be doing it early. So as early as you can do it, the better. I don't want to try and fix something and then find out I can't fix it. It's the worst to come down to the end, the fine cut stage. You're like all happy. Oh, this video is awesome. All right, I'm going to just fix this shot. And it's like, I can't fix it. It's crap, or I can't, I need a new shot. Ugh. I got to open up the edit again and do it. It's no. I want to know ahead of time if this is going to work. If I need to get a new shot, whatever. I want to know that personally during the rough cut stage so I can fix it ahead of time. So for me, that's what the rough cut is. It's like the get it all out. Get it all out there. It's like the it's like a group session. Also, I do the green screen there as well. If you're doing any kind of green screen work, because you want to know then if it's going to work. The last thing you want to do is try to green screen later and it doesn't work and you have to reshoot stuff. It's just so demoralizing. It's so demoralizing. So I want to know it all in the rough cut. So when you're done the rough cut, I hope that made sense. I just want to know ahead of time where the problems are going to be and where the problems are. Because when you're done your rough cut and you review it, then you're going to see stuff like, oh, the pacing's not very good, or that section's really boring, or oh, that shot looks terrible, or oh, that I couldn't fix that shot, or this doesn't make any sense. All the stuff, right? That's what the rough cut's for, is to see everything. Put it out there, be honest, and then you make your notes of the things you need to fix. So at the end of it, you have a list of fixes. And the fixes are for the next stage of the workflow, and that's the fine cut. Before we jump into the fine cut, though, if there's any questions about the rough cut stage, there's a lot going into the rough cut stage. I know there's a lot of stuff. But yeah. I found you looking for hacks, but learning what tools available, how to tell a story, workflow steps, learning from experience. Those are why I stuck around. Thank you, Jason. And I'm trying to bring more of that to the table here. It's really interesting to run a channel like this. And I tell you, it's developed over the years, over the months, over the weeks. It's figuring out what stuff, the level of content, the kind of content, where you put that content. And really, I start to realize, as a YouTube creator, how, to really sort of start growing and not even just growing. I hate that. I'm not trying to, I don't like that YouTube grow business. I'm trying to help a community and build a community of people. And so you realize that there's different sort of formats, there's different levels of content and delivery styles for different stages for people where they're at and where they're coming from to the channel. And so I'm hoping now with the membership to bring, more of my personal experience, and I'm bringing it here as well in this live stream. And I plan to do that with more live streams because, I do the tutorials and they're great, but I find that the tutorials are best done as videos because you guys need to watch them over and over again, and they need to be clear and concise. I just tend to blab on in these live streams, and I'm sure people just kind of leave because they're not getting the value they hope they get. I understand, I get it, but this is just the format of live streaming. That's just how it works. So it's knowing, what do you put in a live stream? What do you put in a video? What do you put in a membership? What do you put on a community post? And as a YouTube creator, I'm starting to get my head around all these things. And it's a little daunting, but it's a little exciting too. So thank you for that comment. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Where does color correct go? Oh, that's what I said. I do it in rough cut stage for the most part. And so let's make a distinction too here, because I know there's lots of terms when people talk about color correct and they jump around. Okay. Very important. There's color correcting, and in color correcting, you're trying to correct color. So the white balance is off. And what does that mean? If you've ever shot on your iPhone using incandescent lights indoors and everything looks orange because the incandescent lights have an orange tinge, right? You bring that into edit, that looks gross. We want to correct it. So you would use the color correction tools, as I was mentioning up here. This one over here, these are very basic, but sometimes they get the job done. This is a white balance, right? So if, for example, I'm talking about the iMovie footage that's orange and it's gross. So you bring it in and and I'll just show you an example. So here, I'll select a clip so you can see. So this is a clip, this is white balance. So anyway, now if I say this was really orange, I would take the color temperature slider here and I'd draw toward blue. You can see how it's taking it's taking the orange out of the shot and my skin, and now it's looking very somber. Or likewise, if it was very blue, for example, I would warm it up by bringing it that way. That looks gross. Anyway, that's the color temperature. Hit reset there. So there's color correcting. You're correcting problems with the color. Contrast, these things are for contrast, saturation, stuff like that. And then there's what we call color timing. That's one term. And that is more artistic. So if that is for storytelling purposes. So you want to create for example, I'll use this again. I want to create a mood of somber, cold. This is what I'm talking about, is kind of cold and stuff like that. Whatever the story is dictating, right? Okay, let me draw this down to blue. And now Mike's talking about stuff that's cold, and it looks cold, and it's giving that feeling of being cold, helping with the storytelling. That is not color correction. That is color timing is one term. So that's a storytelling function. For me in the process, and we'll get to the next stage, but if I have to correct things, meaning fix them, I'll do it in a rough cut because I want to know if I can fix it ahead of time. I don't want to get down to the end of this and realize I can't fix it. I'd rather know ahead of time if I have to reshoot something or get another shot. So I do color correction. Color timing, on the other hand, I do later in the workflow, and we'll talk about that. Hope that made sense, the distinction, because those terms get tossed around a lot. Oh, color correcting. Well, color correcting, you're correcting it. Oh, color timing, or that's the term I know. That's artistic, right? That's more of a storytelling function. You don't need it, but, it helps tell the story. And sometimes those things kind of get really close to each other, particularly, and I'm going to get very technical here and advanced, but most films and a lot of videos, people shoot using what's called log. Basically, to make a long story short, what it is they shoot in a format, in a way, where the picture is very flat, is very neutral. So if you've probably seen log footage before, it looks kind of like pale in a way, right? You're like, that looks kind of. The reason they do that is they want to have a neutral base to start with when they go to color time or correct, right? So that's kind of like two things combined. Because what that allows them, it gives them the base and the dynamic range to really work with the colors if you shoot log and flat like that. Okay, that's more of an advanced thing. I don't think a lot of people in my group are doing that, but maybe you are. But anyway, that's kind of when they correct and timing kind of come together. But I don't do, a lot of that. And so when like I said, if I correct, I want to correct ahead of time. I'm going on and on about this color correction thing. Oh, Mike. The Dusty Dutchman. I had no idea that was called a slip edit. I learned today. Yeah, slip. You slip in the edit points. As opposed to a slide edit. Oh boy, we're getting into the stuff now. So slide editing we do all the time, right? Slide editing is basically when you're taking a clip and you're sliding it along the timeline somewhere else. I'm just going to break my edit here, but whatever. So I have this clip here, and it's like, I like to have this over here instead. Well, let me just slide it on over. That's the magnetic timeline. Beautiful. It's as slide editing built right in, right? That's sliding clips around the timeline. Slip editing is when you're slipping the edit points. You're basically moving the edit points in the clip. So that's the difference, in case you're wondering. Mike's editing class. Okay, so we've wrapped up that thing about rough cut, answered question about color correction. Hope that was clear. So now we're coming to the part in the workflow where it gets fun, hopefully. And that's the fine cut. So the fine cut, what's the difference of fine cut and the rough cut? The fine cut is where you're going to you're going to make your revisions, right? And hopefully they're not major. Because sometimes, depending on how many revisions you make and how big, it could be another rough cut. But usually with a fine cut, you're making revisions, you're adjusting things for pacing and for timing. It's also the place where you're going to be, at least in my workflow, is where I start adding the transitions as well to enhance things. Because again, I want to know the story, make sure the story is solid before I start adding in the eye candy and stuff like that. Because that's just more fun. And like I said, as you get through the process, you want the thinking up here, but as you get to the fine cut, that's where you just want execution and you want creativity and you want to have fun if you're doing it properly. So you're adding transitions, you're adding the title. That's where I add the titles as well to emphasize the key information, because that's when you'll know from the rough cut, what do I need to put up here, like a term or something to explain what I'm talking about here. And you'll know that from the rough cut. And that's where I add the titles in the fine cut. As well, you're adding your effects to enhance the mood or, make things more dynamic. Like, for example, in, let me go back to the thing here. Talk about dynamics. For example, for talking head, right? If you have a lot of talking head back to back with jump cuts, a lot of people do it. It works, I guess, nowadays. But when I was editing, that was a no-no. That'd get you. That's what we call a CLM. Career limiting move. No jump cuts. But what you can do with jump cuts to kind of just give them some dynamic is to do zooms. I have a video on it. Use the Ken Burns or even the crop to fill. So if I go up here, our cropping tools here, we've got crop to fill. So you would crop in to make this a tighter shot. So then when you cut to it, at least the frame is different. So there's some dynamic. It's not just a jump. Do things like zooms using the Ken Burns. Again, I have a video on all that stuff. I'm not going to go into it here. But that's the kind of stuff you would add in the fine cut, the eye candy, just the stuff to help it go down, help the information go down. So yeah, the eye candy. One other thing you can do, sometimes I do in the fine cut, is like I did here, is I'll collapse. I know this is kind of advanced, but if you want to save yourself a track, like an overlay track, if I know if my visuals are locked in, I know where they're going to be, I can collapse. Like, for example, here's an example right here. So I have a photo here and me talking. Well, I know I'm going to be talking on this photo. Why do I need this here? Right? What am I doing? Right? Why don't I just detach this audio and bring this down, delete, and collapse it? Right? Same difference, same final effect. And so that's something sometimes I'll do. I'll go through the timeline, I'll collapse my visuals or the overlay just to save a track, because now I have a track. I could do something else here. I can put another visual. I could put a title. I could do a picture in picture. I could do something else. I do it a lot of times just to clean things up. It's an old habit coming from like editing in the old Final Cut Pro and editing dramas and in Avid and stuff like that. Because you can get a whole bunch of layers going at once, a lot of tracks, and it just kind of becomes this dog's breakfast mess. And so I like to try and clean it up by collapsing things. But that's optional. But it does free you up with another track, which is useful if you want to do something else. So in terms of like, I just showed you that for tools, detach audio. You're going to be using Title Tool. Not the best in iMovie, but you know, it gets it done. Here's a title coming in. And usually I'm using these for like chapter markers, like chapter introductions. And so, you know, you've got the tool here. You can double click, go in, adjust. You got your font stuff. One little tip here with the tool, Title Tool. If you go in here and you see, oh, I don't have the font that I want, go down here to the bottom where it says Show Fonts. And that opens up the Apple font picker. And now all the fonts of your Mac are here that you have access to for the Title Tool. Just a little tip, because I know people say, well, where's my, Roboto or whatever? It's not here. Check that out. Just do that. Little tip, title tip. So you're adding titles, that kind of thing. You can use backgrounds for titles. We've got all our different backgrounds here in iMovie. You can bring in other graphics as branded graphics as backgrounds. Also, real fun, you can start, messing around with stuff like clip filters. If you've ever used those to create effects. So, for example, here's a stock footage of me. By the way, this is me on location. Someone snapped a Polaroid of me shooting this drama I shot and edited. You can see me there with my trusty PD-150 with the harness and the steady rig. And I remember we were on a I think it was a container ship or something like that. We were shooting this dramatic. It was a spy series, so we were shooting this dramatic scene, and we were on a ship. And I was running around with my camera. Always fun. Back when I was young. So anyway, you could take this, for example, say, hey, I want more of effect on this. Let me go into clip filters here. And so over here, clip filters, there's also audio effects. We don't want that. We want a clip filter. Right now, there's none. But I can go in here now and I got, vintage. Oh, that kind of works. Vignette. Blue. Raster. Whatever works for your storytelling. I'm gonna go with vintage because it's old. And then I can come up here and I can adjust the amount. Like there's 100% now. They never used to have. It's only the last few years of iMovie that they had the adjust filter strength. Before they didn't have it. It was painful because it would just be 100%. But now you can adjust how much you just dial it in a little bit here, just a little, like 62. Boom. Give us just a little look. Just a little something, right? So that is what we're doing in the fine cut, right? We're enhancing the storytelling. Stuff like effects and clip filters. And you can get even more advanced if you want to with your effects and stuff like that. But, these clip filters are kind of cool. And you can work with them. You can do stuff with a clip filter, and you can, put colored backgrounds on top of them. And I've got a whole video I'm going to be doing about that, combining things and do all kinds of stuff with color correction to create all kinds of weird effects and fun effects. But you can be creative, and that's what the fine cut part of the workflow is primarily supposed to do, right? You fix the mistakes, hopefully they're minor, but the most that you want to be doing in the fine cut is enhancing, adding the eye candy, emphasizing things with text, that kind of thing. So that's the fine cut. And at the end of the fine cut, if you've done everything, what you end up with is what we call in the business picture lock. What does that mean? It means the picture's locked. We ain't touching the picture no more. It's done. Picture's locked, right? I know it's hard sometimes for us perfectionists, especially with these tools. You could noodle forever. Yes, you can. But at a certain point, nothing's ever finished. It's just kind of done for the moment, right? It's done for now. But picture lock, it's locked. And so once we're done picture lock, we're going to move on to one of the final phases of the workflow. And that's going to be audio. And we'll get to that after we take a little break and go to the chat. Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm giving a course. Joe Purtis, hey, became a member. Thank you so much for becoming a member. Appreciate it. Awesome. I feel like I'm giving a course here. My oldest is in media school. She's actually going to my alma mater, and she's in the same program I was in many, and my wife was in many years ago. And so she's comes home and talks about what she's learning and stuff, and of course I can't help but kind of jump in and start teaching, and I could see her eyes glaze over. It's like okay, I'll stop. But I feel like I'm teaching a course here, which is fun. But a lot of folks when they approach editing is that they don't know where to start, right? It's kind of like it's very daunting. Even though iMovie is beginner friendly, there's still a lot of features in here, and it's like, where do you start? And so that's what the purpose of this is to kind of give you a guide. Like you don't have to follow it. Like I said, it's not gospel, but it's a good starting point for you, and you can just adjust it to work with whatever you're doing. But I find when it comes to editing, you need some direction, or it's just so overwhelming. And so this is the workflow. I know for me, that helps me just be more efficient and effective as an editor. Great job you're doing helping people learn the craft of video production using affordable and accessible tools. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, affordable and accessible doesn't mean that they're, weak, I guess. They work really well. I don't spend as much time on your channel as I'd like to, but always a treat to learn something new when I do pop in. Yeah, hey, thanks for popping in. And listen, that's the beauty of on-demand video, right? There's always the recording. There's always the recording. Think of the sub at a TVO-like sponsorship to support you in your educational effort through Mac Video Magic. Thank you. Exactly. TVO. A TVO sponsorship. So oh boy, take me back. So for those of you who are not familiar in Canada or in Ontario, where I am, we have a provincial educational channel called TV Ontario. And I worked there for 12 years making educational content, educational video. I hosted a show. I made all kinds of things. And one of the things that I did there many times was we had sponsorship because it was a subscriber based. A lot of the funding came from subscribers. We had a small portion from the government, but a lot of it was subscribers. So every quarter, I think it was, we'd have fundraising for about a week or so. And we would, it's very much like PBS. If you're familiar with public broadcasting system in the United States, the same kind of thing. We'd have the pledge-a-thon. And so I hosted that several times. And it was live, and it was fun and interesting. And you're basically asking people to support the channel, like I'm asking you to support the channel with a membership, right? To help, bring the content to you, and also give you more in-depth content. What I really enjoyed was the being by the phone bank and seeing everybody busy. And it was kind of this interesting thing that depending on how, the night was going or how well I felt I was doing, the phone bank would be busy. So that's how I gauged my job as being a host of this live membership drive. If the phones were kind of slow, I'd be like, phones are slow. This is not good. I'm not. But if when they were humming, I always felt good. It was great to have that feedback, and it was great to hear from people in the comments. So I guess in a way, this is a little similar to that. It's a little similar to that. All right. Okay. We don't have much left. We don't have much left. I know this has been taking a while, but I think it's useful. And again, you'll have the recording. You can pick through, watch it again. But I figured I'd put it out there. Okay, so we've finished the fine cut. We have the picture lock. So what's left to do? One of the most important parts of video production, that's audio. As they say, what is it? Audio is half the picture when it comes to video. I'd say more than that. So audio post-production. What are we doing here in audio? So when we're talking about audio, let me just go back to my screen so you can see the audio. And so here you can see the audio here on this project. And let me just go here to the beginning. Pardon my scrolling. I don't want to give you motion sickness. Okay, so audio. What are we doing? Well, a couple things. First, what you want to be doing is cleaning the audio of what we call your sync sound. What's sync sound, Mike? Sync sound is the sound that's going with the pictures. So in this case, it's my voice with my on camera. If you're, recording something else, maybe you're recording a machine or you're recording something else that's putting out audio. The audio that's going with it is called sync sound. That's what we refer to it as. So what you want to be doing here is cleaning it. So for example, noise reduction. That's one of the things you want to be doing. If you want to reduce the background noise, that's a kind of cleaning or sweetening, as we call it in the business with your audio. You want to be editing out weird, clicks and pops and stuff like that can be occurring, and particularly if you have sharp cuts between clips. Sometimes you'll get a pop of the audio, and it's like, well, where's that pop coming from? It's just one of those things with digital. And just a little tip, you do crossfades between the two clips. So if I'm looking at, say, this clip right here, say these two clips are going together and they're cutting, and it's like, what's this pop, man? This is, you want to take this and maybe just fade it, do a little crossfade. See the little fade handle I'm grabbing? You can't see, it's kind of small, but fade handle, I can grab, you know what they are. And you want to fade between them just to try to reduce the pops. So that's one thing you can do. But you want to take those out. And again, they happen a lot between the transitions, between clips. Also, you want to be, like I said, background noise. You want to be doing filtering stuff. You could be doing stuff like compression and other things. I have a whole video, again, on iMovie audio filters and effects. They're not the best, but sometimes you need help in a pinch, and they're there. So we've got, if we go up and I'll just select this, and we'll go over here to the sound section here. You have auto. This is kind of like a loudness. This is kind of like it's a loudness filter. Raises to a certain point and evens out your audio levels. It's very useful, particularly for narration and stuff like that. You got the volume controls. And this over here, we'll talk about this later. That's something different. But over here, we have the reduction and equalizer. So we have reduced background noise. Again, I have a video on how that works. But you can use that. And then we have the equalizer, and it has all these settings. And right now it's flat, which is like, it's not doing any kind of equalization. But you have all these different ones depending on whatever problems you're having with your audio. These may work. And honestly, the problem with them is that there's no adjustment. There's no settings. It's like on or off, which is unfortunate. So something you have to play with them and see if they work. Yeah, unfortunately. And in my case, a lot of them are not very good. But anyway, they're there. So you can filter using those. So there's the filtering part. Now, after that, you've cleaned the sync audio and it's sounding good. Now we're going to start adding in other things, other elements to help tell your story. So sound effects is one. For example, here in this edit, I've got sound effects that go with the popping on of these logos. And those sound effects are right here, these three things here, right? This is what we call one-shot effects, meaning they just go on once, as opposed to ambient sound effects, where, for example, if I was, if I had a shot of, I don't know, an ocean, but there was like construction noise and stuff, and it's like, it sounds terrible. I would take out the construction noise, and then I would get some, royalty-free stock sound effect of ocean ambience, and I'd add it to sort of just augment and enhance the shot. So that's ambience versus these what we call one-shot effects. Anyway, another little professional thing for you to know. Anyway, so be adding those in. One-shot effects like whooshes, and sometimes you use those little dings and stuff like that. That's what I'm using here. Just little things there. So yeah, these are to enhance your story, right? Enhance the storytelling with the sound effects. Once those are in, then I add the music. And so here's the music down here in the music well in iMovie, which is kind of cool because it's an independent track from these. These are connected clips, which is great when you're doing sound effects because you don't want, your sound effects are all synced up and they're spotted with certain parts of the clip. This is the beauty of the magnetic timeline. These will travel with the clip. See? I won't lose sync. Very cool magnetic timeline thing. But I don't want necessarily to do that with the music. I want the music to be independent. So they give you this music well to do that down here, which is very cool. So we're adding music. Music, yes, no, sometimes. I have a whole video about that too, in terms of tutorial videos. Bottom line is music is there to add certain emotion to your video, right? To make people feel a certain way. Even in learning videos, we use music to make, for me, it's a lot of it's storytelling, depending on what you're showing, but also to make people feel confident about learning stuff, right? Set a mood, set a tone for learning. So that's what music does. It really sets a tone and emotion. But you have to be careful because it has to fit with your video, right? There's nothing worse, and I know you've seen these videos on YouTube where the music is blasting and it's really aggressive, and you're like, and it's drowning out the person talking, and it doesn't seem to fit with what they're talking about. That can be just off-putting. So you have to be careful with your music in terms of your choice, that it fits your video. Other thing too, and a lot of people don't do this. Now, royalty-free, obviously talk about where you get music. Royalty-free services. I use Epidemic Sound. It's great. I've been using it for years. The great thing about it is what you're able to do with the music. So don't be afraid to edit your music if it's not working for you, right? Edit parts out. I do it all the time. But the great thing about Epidemic Sound is if you go there, they give you what are called stems, which basically it's different tracks of the song, the music, separated. So you can take those and combine them in iMovie on different tracks, or I do it in GarageBand, and I'll combine the stems and I'll make my own arrangements so that, okay, this part of the song is too busy. I'm going to take that out, take that stem out. I just want the beat and the bass line. That's all I want. That works because everything else is too distracting. So when you have the stems, you can just take out all the other stuff and just have the beat and the bass line, and do that in GarageBand, export it, bring it into iMovie. So you can customize your music. That's the beauty of stems. Anyway, don't be afraid to edit your music. Okay, so once we have the music in, the effects are in, everything's clean, now becomes the very important part of blending everything together. We call mixing. This is the final part. This is the final thing. The final stage. Well, next to final stage. And this is very important because sometimes you can mess this up and it can really destroy your video because no one can understand what's being said. No one can hear anything. Things are too strong. The music's too strong. I can't hear the person talking enough. The sound effects are way too loud. All that stuff you're doing in the mix, right? You're blending together. And that's when I go back up here to that feature in the audio. This here, lower volume of other clips. So what this is, and I'd have a video about this, but what it is it's a feature called ducking. If you've heard of ducking, what does that mean? You know, like ducking out of the way? That's what it means. But what you're doing is you're ducking audio tracks. So typically when someone is talking on camera, like over here, and you have music, you don't want the music overpowering the person talking. You want the music to duck underneath the person talking, right? Just to be in the background, just to blend it in. And that's what this function does. here in iMovie. So here's a tool for it. And the thing is if you select a clip. So for example, I selected this clip. Let me show you. I'm going to bring this music up like crazy. Look at that. So loud. It's going to overpower, I don't know why it's not playing on the board today. Anyway, it's going to overpower me talking, right? It's like no one's going to hear me. So what can ducking do? If I select my clip here of me talking, and I go up to this lower volume of the clips, and I click it, watch what happens to the music. See? It ducked. Physically ducked down underneath me, right? And then it comes back up over here. So it's going to duck under this clip. So any clip you have selected, so ideally what I would do is select all my talking clips and then hit that button, and the music would duck automatically whenever I'm talking. And so you can adjust the ducking level up here, how much you want it to duck. So watch the music. Okay, now it's not ducking at all, but watch this. I want it to duck all the way over here. Oh, now it's way down. So you can adjust the ducking level. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't really use this. I prefer to do it myself, manually, using the volume bands like I'm grabbing right here on the clip. That's what I prefer to do. This gives you more control. And the great thing about it too is that you can keyframe. Again, a whole video about this. You can look on my channel, but you can go in here and keyframe. So for example, if I had music here, if I had music up and it's like, okay, I want to duck it down underneath me, you can make keyframes. So I can hold down the Option key on my keyboard, whoops, and you can see a little diamond thing. It's a little plus button, and that makes keyframes, and then I can grab that and I can bring down the audio. So you can keyframe your audio, which is very cool. But even cooler and a faster way to do this is to use the range tool. So if I hit the R key on my keyboard, I get this range icon, and I can pick a range here. Okay, I want this part of the music, this range, to duck down underneath me. Well, I select this range. Now all I have to do is grab the volume band, select it, click it, and drop it down. And look, keyframes automatically with a nice little curve on either end. And it's done. Oh, that's so helpful. I remember back in the day having to do that all manually constantly. What a pain. Now you can do it with the range tool. So cool. So cool. Anyway, that's what you're using to bring down levels and mix your audio together to blend. And I'll give you one rule of thumb as I undo all this stuff that I've done. One rule of thumb when it comes to mixing. You always want the dominant audio. You want to set that level first. So in most cases, when you're doing a video, it's the person talking. So you can see the nice, healthy level there. You want to be clear, nice, strong level. And then you mix everything else, the sound effects, the music, all that stuff is in behind, is keyed behind that, right? So you set that level, and then everything else drops in when it needs to. But you never want to be overtaking the primary. So if you're talking, that's going to be the primary. Everything else is going to duck or be behind. If you go to a shot, say, of the ocean and no one's talking, then you could bring that ambience up because that's featured, right? And maybe, so you want to mix things that way. And mixing is a very, it's a way, audio and mixing is a very efficient or effective way to really shape the feel of your video. If you can do it right, it can, I mean, I've done in my career where I've taken videos and even at the fine cut stage went, this is kind of trash. And somehow miraculously brought it to life in the audio mix. So that's the power of the audio mix. It can really help your video. It can really help your video. So very important. So that's the final part of the workflow. I mean, in terms of editing, it is. And so you do your audio mix and your final, and it's done, and it's finished. It's finished. It's all done. And then it's the final stage. The final stage. And that is go have a nap. No. Sometimes, yeah, you will. but it'll be the final stage. And let's take a little break to the chat and before we get to the final one, because the final one is very short, and that's exporting. It's pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward. Steve and Cheese Garden Services. Welcome back. Good to see you. Hello, Mike. I know you are doing well. I will watch this live later. I hope you have a great Valentine's Day. You too. Watching on the phone, on the move. Oh, the wife's driving. Well, hey, listen. Say hello. Say hello to the wife for me. Thanks for watching on the go. Yeah, check it out later. Watch the replay. That's the beauty of the replay. Okay, so let me just get to the final thing, because might as well wrap it up. So you've done everything. You got the complete video. Oh, boy. And you've watched it and reviewed it. You love it. You think it's the greatest thing. And now you're going to put it out in the world. Oh, my goodness. On YouTube. Oh, gosh. No. It's exporting. Exporting. Okay, I have a whole video about that. Now, so the key thing with exporting your video, couple things. I didn't say this at the beginning. I should have when I talked about project setup, because it ties to export. And that's the thing about iMovie with setting the resolution of your project. Okay, I have a whole video about that too. And actually, it's probably good that it came at this point, because it makes more impact if I talk about it here. Because a lot of times when you go up to export, and I'll go back, and it's like, I can't see some stuff around here. Okay. So we go up and it's like, I'm done. Let's put this out. Let's save it. Let's put it out to the world. We go up here to the share button, and we go export file. I don't use this. The save platforms, social platforms, it's presets for YouTube and Facebook. They're okay. They work. They're kind of tied to the I think they still are. I don't know if they've been updated, but they're tied to the YouTube specifications for export. I don't use them. I use export file. And then you get the dialogue. Now, this is what kills. I hear this all the time. People get upset and they're like, what happened? They go here to resolution and it's like, wait a second. And it's 720p. Wait a second, this is a 1080p project. And then they go in here and this is grayed out. There's no 1080p. Or likewise, it's, they did 4K and it only says 1080p. And they're like, what? Why can't I export? Okay. Because when you set up your project, you set it up. The first clip you put on the timeline was, in this case, let's say I only have 720p, but I know I have 1080p footage in there and I want a 1080p. It's because the first clip I put on the timeline was 720p. That's why that happens. And I have a whole video on how to set the resolution of your project manually, creating what I call dummy clips in Apple Keynote at the resolution and frame rate that you want for your project. And bring those in and putting those as the first clip on your timeline. That sets it. And then you can get rid of that. Add your first clip, then get rid of the dummy clip, and it sets the project at that resolution. That's part of the project setup phase. But I think it's interesting to talk about it here. I think it's more impactful because you're going to get caught at this stage when you try to export. And it's like, what? 540p. That's why. Okay. So anyway, when we get to export settings here. Now let's go walk through these real quick. Again, I have a video about this. So obviously you want video and audio, unless you're doing a podcast, you're audio only. Resolution, you want the maximum resolution, whatever your project is, 1080p, 4K. Mine's 1080p. Now quality. We got some choices here: low, medium, high, ProRes, custom. All right. I use high all the time. And I think I do tests all the time. So you can do it too. If you want to see what, you're exporting. Because if you look at the YouTube specifications, they have what's called a data rate, which is megabits per second for the quality. And that goes to quality, amount of data. So they have 1080p. Okay, so I'm making my video 1080p, in this case, 30 frames per second. Here's the data rate that YouTube recommends to make the video look good. So you can export to that data rate here in iMovie. Now, what I typically do is I use high because that exceeds the YouTube specifications, and you want to be exceeding or matching or exceeding the specification. You never want to be below them, right? You always want to be above. So I use high. I think it's like, if I can remember, 1080p, 30 frames per second for YouTube is, I think it's 8 megabits per second. High out of iMovie is like 25, according to, if I can remember my tests correctly. So it's way good. ProRes, you don't want to be using this unless you are cutting something in iMovie and you're going to bring it to another video editor or some other application to do further editing. Because the ProRes files are great quality, but man, oh man, are they big. They're huge. Big data rate, but big file size. You don't want to be, and I know people, maybe I'll just upload this to YouTube too. It's best, right? Best. YouTube will just throw that away. It'll just throw away those megabits. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. You're wasting storage. So unless you're, like I said, you're going to edit some more, don't use that. And then there's custom, which is, if you want to really dial in, see, 20 megabits. I think that's high, the high size setting. But you can go, if you want to do, okay, I want to match YouTube, I'm going to dial this down to like 8 or whatever, 12 or something. Anyway, let's say that. And notice how down here is the file size, how it changes. It goes up as I put the megabits up, and it comes down as I reduce the megabits, right? So lower quality, lower file size. So you can do custom if you want to really dial it in. I just usually do high. Compress faster. Okay, this one is confusing for a lot of people. So faster versus better quality. Of course you want better quality. So basically what it is this is how long the compressor is going to take your video and it's going to compress it down, right? It's going to export and compress it down into a file format to deliver. Compress is how careful do you want the compressor to be with the compression. Faster is fine. It's going to do a great job. Better quality is like, I'm going to work a little harder. A lot of times you use better quality if you have a lot of motion in your video, a lot of action. Because a lot of action for video compression is challenging. It's more data. So if you have a lot of action, if you're doing like sports and stuff like that, probably want to use better quality because you want the compressor to work with it a little better, get a better compression. I know it's very technical, but anyway, that's what that is. And now this new thing, allow export segmentation. It's a new thing with the Silicon Max has come on the last year or so. And basically what it does is it exports your video in parts and sections. And you can see this. If you set a location for your export and then hit export and allow export segmentation and go through it and watch, you'll see that your video is like broken up into like 3 different videos. And it compresses and export, and then it combines all of them into one finally. So that's what that is. And it's just kind of using more of the processor in terms of the silicon processors is more efficient, using more cores and all that kind of. So it's, using 3 or 4 cores at the same time rather than just one chugging through. Anyway, that's what that's about. And so then next, of course, you want to label it. You want to label your video, obviously. A little YouTube tip, because I'm in the mood. If you want to help sort of optimize for video SEO, your YouTube videos, don't just put like, my hunting video or whatever as your title. That helps you know what it is. But you got to think about YouTube and the algorithm. And you got to basically use all the keywords, not all of them, but use the keywords that if someone was searching for this video, you would use. So for example, if I was exporting this trailer, for example, I wouldn't say, movie trailer, whatever, channel trailer. That's fine. It would work. But if I was being strategic in terms of YouTube, I would label this iMovie YouTube video types or something like that. Something that has keywords in it that'll help push it to the algorithm. Just a little YouTube tip. And that's exporting. Another exporting tip, when it comes to saving it out, right? A little tip. So, you save and then you find the file location and you save it out, right? A little tip for me, why am I a little shaky there? I tend to export to a different drive than my media is on. So a different drive than my iMovie library is on. I just out of habit, I've just had problems sometimes. It's something about when the computer is taking the footage and the media and processing it from the same drive and putting it to the same drive. It can be, I don't know, sometimes it could be extra work and stuff can go wrong in my experience. So I'll export to a different drive. So I'll take the media from the library from one drive, and then I'll export and put the video to another drive. That's just me. I mean, I'm sure it's nothing, but anyway, that's what I do. Another tip. And that's it. That is the workflow. Wow, that was a long workflow, Mike. Yeah, because I went on and on and on and on as I do. But that is the workflow. Really, it's just project setup, set it up, organize, import your footage, do the radio cut so you have a guide to editing, do the rough cut, add in your visuals so you have a complete video. You can see where the problems are and the pacing and all other stuff. See the issues you have to deal with those, and fix the few things in the fine cut, and add your effects and have fun, be creative, stuff to enhance your video. And then it's audio work, fixing your audio, adding in your sound effects, music, mixing it all together, blending it together so it all works and nothing is fighting with each other during your video. And then exporting with the settings that, are going to match or exceed the platform that you're exporting to. And then you deliver, and then you do it all over again the next week. Anyway, that's the professional workflow. So I don't expect people to follow it like gospel word for word, but it's just something to give you some kind of basis to develop your own workflow. So if you want to know what's going on. Oh, square level. A year ago, I started this journey with no idea what I was doing. Your videos have helped me out so much. I now really enjoy the editing process. Your tips have helped grow my channel to 10 million views. Yes. Way to go, square and level. Way to go. Awesome. Good. And I know this one is going to be like, I think this live stream, I'm going to obviously make a video of it and cut it down and make it more concise. But I think this will be a nice foundation for everybody in terms of their editing journey. I hope it will be, at least. Thanks again for everything. I'll have to run. I'll catch the wrestling. Yeah, I know. I understand. It's hard to get these things into I'll keep it to an hour. It's like, I don't know. That's hard for me. Because then if it was that way, I would just be like, let me just read. Then I might as well just make a video, right? What's the point? But thank you. Thank you for being here, and I understand. And thanks for becoming a member. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for great details. Learned a lot again. Excellent. Optimus goes Tesla. I'm glad you learned some stuff. Saving to another drive is a good idea. You're not imagining things. Lots of data flowing both ways can certainly be a problem. Yeah, I've had stuff die on me and just cack out. Or it'll finish, and then you watch the final video back, and it's like, why does that have a hiccup in it, or a dropped frame or something? So I just by this habit, I export to a separate drive. I don't do it all in the same drive. And then, for organization, I'll drag it back into that drive if I have to, my folders there or something. But when I'm exporting, typically what I'll do is my library, iMovie library is on an external fast drive. I'll work from that. And then I'll export to my desktop on my Mac. And then when I'm done, delivered, I'll take that from the desktop and then put it in its folder where it needs to be for organization and archiving. So that's typically what I do. So if you have any questions about that, that was a lot. I know it was a lot. So if you have any questions about it, but I guess my point is this: there's plenty of tools in iMovie for you to follow that professional workflow. There's more than enough. I mean, just the trimming tools and stuff like that, enough in iMovie are pretty good. They're pretty good for just editing video. I mean, they're pretty good. Where iMovie is not as strong when it comes to like the eye candy effects and fixing things and stuff like that, like color correction and stuff. But for just basic cutting, editing, I love the tools. They're great. So that's how you do it. That's how I made videos for decades. Though when I did it, I started with a script because you need to, in the professional world, you got to start with the script. So So are there any general questions about that, or just general video creation questions? Let me know for a few minutes. I know this has been a long stream, so I get it. But if you have any before I dip out, and listen again, I just before I do though, again, I mentioned the membership, and it's open, and some people have joined, which is great. And I'm really hoping, and as for those of you who have joined, in terms of the live streams, now that some people are in, having a live stream is worth it, right? Because if there's nobody, then why have a members only live stream? So as numbers build, we'll check the community tab for that, all that information. Everything will be there. But yeah, so if you haven't, that's cool, right? I'm glad you're here to support. Even if you're here to support or watch my videos, that's great. That's awesome. That's supporting me still too. The thing about the membership is that you'll get more, I guess, of me and more of my expertise and insight to help you with your videos. So that's something that something I'll be building on with the membership. But yeah. So listen, I'm gonna keep it open for a few more minutes, and for any other comments and questions. And we have member Jason Whitlark. Any high-level thoughts on demonstration, build, make videos? Yeah, so I did a lot of those. I did a lot of science videos where I did a lot of experiments and had to perform them, had to direct them, and had to edit them. And so there's a couple things, couple concepts. One of them is kind of not advanced, but it's kind of a basic filmmaking continuity concept. It's called the 180-degree rule. Excuse me, rule. What does that mean? Let me take a sip of tea. So basically what that is when you're recording your demo, usually you'll be like, here's me and here's the demo. There's a line between me and the demo, right? My hands are doing whatever. So there's an invisible line there. Where you place your camera is very important, and I'll tell you why in a second. But we call it 180-degree rule. So if I'm doing this, right? I'm doing this demo, and if I'm recording, say, from over my shoulder, so I can sort of simulate the person doing it, which is typically a lot of times what you want to do just for orientation's sake. So it's over the shoulder. So say I'm going over this shoulder, and we're shooting the demo, we're doing an angle of it. Now we want a different angle because we got to show something else. Well, the 180-degree rule says, here's this line, right? You've declared yourself on this side of the line. Here's the line. You're here. So if you want to get a different angle, you have to stay on this side of the line. So you got to go over, say, here, or here, or here. But you don't want to cross the line. You don't want to go on this side. Why? Because then everything is reversed and it's disorienting for the viewer, especially when you're doing a demo and you're trying to follow their hands and the orientation of things. If you cross that line, it gets very confusing. So that's a high-level concept for shooting demos. 180-degree rule, pick a side and stay on it. Stay on that one side of that line. And the other thing is to get close-ups. I see so many videos where people are showing intricate things. For example, I'll give you a story. When my daughter was young, we got her a playhouse. I won't name the brand, but it's a playhouse, popular. And it had, came in a kit, all these parts. And it's like, the directions were really of no help, the printed directions. But, they have a video, a tutorial online. So my wife and I go to the tutorial online, and we watch it. And I'm appalled because I'm a guy who came from instructional video. The whole thing was one wide shot, the entire video of them building the thing. And here you can see, I can't see, it's a wide shot. There were no close-ups. I couldn't believe it. It was all one wide shot. So That's not helping anyone. It didn't help me learn. It didn't help me. It was terrible. It was frustrating. So think when you're doing demos and stuff like that, think close-ups. Think close-ups. And again, stay on that one side of the line. And then edit in your close-ups and put them in when people need to see the details. So many things when it comes to crafts and details and makes. It's the close-ups, right? It's the details that make it, right? Seeing that thing just at the right angle to know, oh, I'm doing it correctly. So that's high-level stuff on make videos. Do your wide establishing so people can get oriented with what's going on. And then, but get lots of close-ups so people can see the details. So much of it's the details. And that's the power of video, right? We use video for a talking head all the time, and that's fine. But the power of video is taking people where they can't normally go, right? We can't zoom into that thing and see the details. I mean, we could, I guess, if we had it in front of us. But you have the power as the creator to take us there, right? To take us there close, to take us all these different places that we couldn't usually go. So think about that when you're making those types of videos. Crazy. Yeah, it's a whole thing. And that's one of those things that, again, when I talk about the membership and things and ideas I have, and that's sort of like a bread and butter technique and concept that I used for years doing, because I did a lot of demo videos. And that's something, it's kind of more an advanced topic that deserves more than like the 8 to 10 minutes of a typical YouTube video. And that's, those are the kinds of things in the membership where I have I have room and license to go deeper into topics and stuff like that. But yeah, that's the concept of continuity editing and shooting multiple angles, what we call coverage in the business, and editing those together properly, particularly for demos and how-tos, physical how-tos. Those are important concepts. I mean, you don't have to do it. You can just do one wide shot and hope for the best, I guess. But if you really want to enhance the learning, then you want to take it a step further with close-ups and good editing. So yeah. All right. Well, this has been like, unless I look at the clock, oh my goodness, 2.5 hours again. Another 2.5 hour. I'm definitely going to have to pre-trim this when I edit it. That's a reference to the video from earlier this week. I don't know, I seem like I'm stuttering. I don't know what's going on here. Could be my capture card. Or maybe it's just YouTube telling me to get off because you've been on here for too long. Anyway, so listen, I hope you found value in that, and that it's it's a lot, but I think it's very useful for you. Jason, you're welcome. Thank you so much. This has been super informative, lots of fun. Oh, I'm glad it was fun. I know it was formative, but I never know if it's fun for you. Cheryl and Simon, nicely, thanks. All right, cool. All right. So I hopefully this will be useful to you. And we're back again with the weekly streams. I didn't think this one was going to be this thick and involved, but I'm just ambitious fella when it comes to content and teaching stuff. So yeah. So I hope this was useful, and we'll be back again next week again with the streams. I know I missed last week. I got the flu shot, and sometimes you have a reaction to that. That's what happened last week. I had a bit of a reaction. So I was out of commission, but we're gonna be back again next week with the streams to help you along. And again, I'll say it again. Membership is open, and I hope you consider it. But hey, you can support me any way that you can, and I truly appreciate it. So again, thank you so much for being here for the stream. Thank you so much for, again, new members for joining the community, and thank you for indulging me in my long live streams. And I hope you found value in it. So until the next one, I will take care. Enjoy your Valentine's Day, and I'll see you soon.